Sports fans, order our limited edition exclusive design commemorating Allen Iverson stepping over Tyronn Lue. This t-shirt is less than $15, but order now, supplies are limited. The NBA has long been a big man's game, ever since the beginning when giants like Mikan, Chamberlain, and Jabbar roamed the paint. But it's the little man that's created much more excitement, as us mortals in the stands could identify with the guys who were much more normal-sized, yet could soar up, over, and around the Bigfoots to create highlights for themselves and their teammates. As we enter into a new era of the NBA, where point guards are kings, it's time to reflect on the three greatest seasons of all time from the shorties, players who were 6 feet or under. Most of you may not remember the name Nate "Tiny" Archibald, and it's a shame, since he ushered in a new era of ball-handling point guard. You see, in the 60s, you'd still see players dribble to their left with their right hand, but with the arrival of Pete Maravich, Clyde Frazier, and Tiny Archibald, almost overnight, guards were crossing guys over, doing spin moves, and going through the legs. And before you start yelling that he was listed at 6'1", players' heights were fudged even more back then than they are now. And I even have evidence of his true height.
You know, some people say that there's no place for a little man in the game of basketball, but you're only 6 feet tall, and you led the NBA in scoring and also set an assist record, so...
Bob Cousy saw me play. He said, we're going to draft you, we don't know which round. For being 6 feet or 5'11" or whatever size I was, I grew. I was 8 feet tall when he told me that, because I didn't really think I had a chance to play in the NBA.
By Tiny's third year, it was almost poetic that his head coach was Bob Cousy, the progenitor of the dribbling point guard, who encouraged him to dominate the game unlike any little man had ever done in the NBA up to that point. And dominate he did. With his waterbug speed, defenses simply could not keep up with him, and his change of pace dribbling moves. He was virtually unstoppable in the open court, as he could get to the hoop quicker than anybody, and because he was a lefty, he presented a different look than most other players, keeping the defense off balance. Plus, he could stop and pop on a dime if his man sagged off to prevent the drive. And on top of that, he could throw the spectacular pass to a teammate running with him, leaving the defense with very few answers. That said, the number of possessions inflated quite a lot of per-game stats back then. Their pace was 107.3, almost last in the league. However, in comparison, this year's Warriors were ranked 4th in pace at just 99.8. In the 71-72 season, Archibald gave us a taste of what was to come, averaging 28 and 9, but fully detonated the next year, where he averaged 34 points a game, 11.4 assists, shot 49% from the field, and played a whopping 46 minutes a game. Add 10 free throw attempts per game, and he put an incredible amount of pressure on the defense. He led the Kings to the best offensive rating in the NBA that year and generated 56.8 points per game for a team that averaged 107.6. That's 53% of the team's points. Unfortunately, they were dead last in defensive rating and didn't have much talent around Archibald, so the Kings finished a paltry 36-46 and did not make the playoffs. And while you're anxiously awaiting the NBA season, don't forget there are plenty of sporting events and concerts to go to. And there's no better app than SeatGeek to find the best seats. I just used it to get great seats to the Cubs Blue Jays game at Wrigley. I could see a picture with a vantage point of the seat, plus a grade letting you know how good a value you're getting. Best of all, every seat is guaranteed, and I was able to use my phone to get into the game. It was quick, easy, and if you use my code BBall, you'll get $20 off your first purchase. So use SeatGeek to buy tickets to your next game, concert, comedy show, or even the theater. Let's jump to this millennium, where we find Allen Iverson leaving it all on the court every night for the Philadelphia 76ers. In the 2000-2001 season, AI led a ragtag bunch of players designed to fit around him all the way to the NBA Finals. And just about all their offensive success hinged around Iverson dancing and darting his way all over the court. He didn't get much chance to push the ball in the open court since the Sixers ranked 19th in pace that year, so he was left to grind it out coming off of endless screens and isolating into tougher and tougher shots. Just to paint the picture, the second and third leading scorers on this team were Theo Ratliff and Dikembe Mutombo. Iron Man isn't a good enough description, as he led the league in minutes per game, basically not allowing Coach Larry Brown to take him out. So it was no surprise that his teammates took care of the defense while Iverson did his work with the ball. He averaged 31 points, 4.6 assists, and shot 42% from the field. While Iverson might have been called a point guard, in reality, he played exactly as a shooting guard did, and he ushered in a whole new era of high volume but low efficiency players. In the past, if you were going to take 25 shots a game, you'd better make close to 50% of them. But as defenses began to improve, it became harder for guards to generate great looks, and Iverson was all the more impressive since he would attack the rim relentlessly. Just getting his shot off was incredible, independent of them actually going in, and he passed off just enough to keep the defense a little more honest in guarding him. While Iverson himself acknowledged defense wasn't his thing, he still averaged 2.5 steals a game, a key component to lifting the Sixers to a surprise appearance in the 2001 Finals. Heck, they even won Game 1 against one of the best teams of all time, and were only down 3 with 2.5 minutes left in Game 2. Iverson handed them 36 points, 5.6 rebounds, 3.8 assists, and played almost every single minute in the series. While they ultimately succumbed to the Lakers in 5, this is the best team success of any of the 3 seasons we're looking at. Which brings us to the Isaiah Thomas of the Boston Celtics. Unheralded coming out of college, he finally found a home as a starter in Boston, and I'd argue his numbers were the most impressive of any of these seasons, primarily because his shooting percentage was 46%, he shot threes at 38%, and only played 33.8 minutes a game. If we normalize for minutes played, you can see how these 3 players compared to each other. Much like Tiny and AI, IT bore the most burden to generate offense on a team that lacked a lot of firepower. And even though defenses would key in on him, IT would still come up big time and again in the fourth quarter. Isaiah is also 4 to 5 inches shorter than either Tiny or Iverson, and you've got to give him props for that, since he spent a lot of time getting into the teeth of the defense and using his left-handed finishes in a variety of ways to get these incredible shots off and into the net more often than Iverson, and just behind Archibald. In the playoffs, IT struggled as defenses keyed in on him, and he was also battling major injuries that ultimately sidelined him after one game of the Eastern Conference Finals. So in the end, if you had to rate these individual seasons, it's not so easy to choose the best one. We've never seen a player before or since lead the league in points and assists like Tiny did. Maybe only LeBron carried a less talented team to the finals compared to Iverson's Sixers team, but that's debatable, and AI wasn't 6'8 and 250. And the smallest of them all, Isaiah, had the best effective field goal percentage while fearlessly attacking the hoop and finishing better than Iverson ever did. I'm curious to hear which season you'd pick, so vote in the comments. As for me, if I had a gun to my head, I'd have to choose the answer. Probably based upon the fact that he got that team to the NBA Finals. But man, is it a tough call. Sports fans, to see more of our great NBA content and analysis, make sure to hit the subscribe button, but also click the bell and adjust your settings so you can get an alert the second our videos drop. Because trust me, you're going to want them hot and fresh. You in?